Good day, learners! I am Teacher Kevin and I am here to help you read the stories assigned to you today for the subject 21st Century from the Philippines and the World. Dahil alam kong mahirap mag-aral mag-isa, narito ko para tulungan kayo sa pagproseso ng mga teksto na halaw mula sa inyong mga module. I am here as your teacher from a distance for the first episode of I Love Reading. The Republic forms part of Russia's North Caucasian Federal District. Good day, learners! I am Teacher Kevin and I am here to help you read the stories assigned to you today for the subject 21st Century from the Philippines and the World. I love reading. Chenchnya. Chenchnya, officially the Chechen Republic, is a constituent republic of Russia situated in the North Caucasus in Eastern Europe. The republic forms part of Russia's North Caucasian Federal District. Ganito kasi yun. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the Chechen Ingush ASSR is split into two parts, the Republic of Ingushetia and the Chechen Republic. Chenchnya Republic, however, proclaimed total independence, severing ties with Russia. This started the Chechen Wars. The First Chechen War took place from 1994 to 1996, when Russian forces attempted to regain control over Chenchnya. Despite overwhelming numerical superiority in men, weaponry, and air support, the Russian forces were unable to establish effective permanent control over the mountainous area due to numerous successful full-scale battles and insurgency raids. In April 1996, the first democratically elected president for Chenchnya was killed by Russian forces using a booby trap bomb. Did it end there? Unfortunately, hindi. The successful offensive to retake Grozny by Chechen rebels forces incited a widespread demoralization of the Russian forces and prompted Russian President Boris Yeltsin to declare a ceasefire in 1996 and sign a peace treaty a year later that saw a withdrawal of Russian forces. Parang okay na sana lahat, pero Chenchnya Republic suffered a lot in the war. While Russia was sending money to rehabilitate their cities, funds were taken by authorities and warlords. In return, naghirap ang mga tao. Dahil dito, karamihan ng mga tao ay ginawang hanap buhay ang pangingidnap. In fact, in 1998, 170 people were kidnapped and there were a lot of kidnapping tensions, including the death of Chenchya's top anti-kidnapping official. Noong 1999, nagkaroon ng mga pagbomba sa ilang syudad sa Russia at itinurong pasimuno umano nito ang mga Chechen separatists, dahilan upang ideklara ang pangalawang Chechen War. In February 2000, Russia was able to recapture Grozny. Afterwards, Chenchnya was reincorporated into Russia as a semi-autonomous federal subject state. Why do we need to discuss that? For this particular episode, we're going to discuss Chenchnya, written by Anthony Mara. But before we start the story, I want you to write down the following. These are the lead-off questions that we are going to answer later on.
Okay!
First, what descriptions were given about the setting of the story? Second, what seems to be the conflict surrounding the story? Third, what was the deal made by Sonia and Ahmed? And fourth, what change in attitude was evident in the main character of the story at the beginning and at the end? Before we go on, let us keep the following terms in mind. Caught means camp bed. Again, caught means camp bed.
Okay!
Affiliation means an official connection to something. For example, I am officially affiliated to the Department of Education because I work right there. Third, foresight means the ability to predict. Fourth, repatriated means to send off someone back to their own country. Like for example, the repatriation of our OFWs during the pandemic. Fifth, furnace. It is the heating unit used to heat up an entire building. Sixth, prying. Hindi frying ha, with the letter P. Prying. This means excessively interested in person's private affair. Yung masyadong matanong, minsan para lang makichismis. Cardiology, the branch of medicine that deals with diseases and abnormalities of the heart. Internal medicine. Internal medicine physicians are specialists who apply scientific knowledge and clinical expertise to the diagnosis, treatment, and compassionate care of athletes. Endocrinology is the study of medicine that relates to the endocrine system, which is the system that controls hormones. Trauma ward, a trauma center or zone in a hospital equipped with staff to provide care for patients suffering from major traumatic injuries. And maternity ward, the department of a hospital that provides care for women during pregnancy and childbirth. Now that you're equipped with vocabularies, let's read. I'm going to read it with you. At times, there shall also be guide popping in the interaction zone. Watch out for that. Furthermore, I will also need you to write the words you can understand from the text. Kung meron kayo mga salitang hindi maintindihan doon sa teksto, isulat sila sa isang papel. Write them on a piece of paper as we read. Are you ready? Let's begin. Chenchnya by Anthony Mara. After her sister Natasha died, Sonia began sleeping in the hospital. She returned home to wash her clothes a few days a month, but those days became fewer and fewer. No reason to return, no need to wash her clothes. She only wears hospital scrubs anyway. She wakes on a cot in the trauma unit. She sleeps there intentionally in anticipation of the next critical patient. Some days, roused with a shuffle of footsteps, the cries of the family members, she stands and a body takes her place on the cot and she works on resuscitation, knowing she is awake because she could dream nothing like this.
A man is waiting here to see you.
A nurse says as Sonia, still on the cot, rubs the weariness from her eyes.
About what?
The nurse hesitates.
He's right out here.
A minute later, in the hallway, the man introduces himself.
My name is Ahmed.
He speaks Russian without an accent. But by now, Sonia feels more comfortable conversing in Chenchnya. A short beard descends from Ahmed's face. For a moment, she thinks he's a religious man, but remembers that most men have grown their beards out. Few have shaving cream, fewer have mirrors. The war has made the confused cheeks and chins devout. He gestures to a small girl, no other than 8, standing beside him.
My wife and I cannot care for her.
Ahmed says.
You must take her.
This isn't an orphanage.
There are no orphanages.
The request is not uncommon. The hospital receives humanitarian aid, has food and clean water. Most important, intends to the injured regardless of ethnicity or military affiliation, making the hospital one of the few larger buildings left untargeted by either side of the war. Newly injured arrive each day, too many to care for. Sonia shakes her head. Too many dying. She cannot be expected to care for the living as well.
Her father was taken by the rebels on Saturday. On Sunday, the army came to take her mother.
Sonia looks at the wall calendar, as if a date could make sense of the times.
Today is Monday,
She says.
I was a medical student before the war.
Ahmed says, switching to Chenchnya.
In my final year, I will work here until a home is found for the girl.
Ahmed glowers. Sonia often sees defiance from rebels and occasionally from soldiers, but rarely from civilians.
I can't.
She says, but her voice falters, her justification failing. Sonia surveys the corridor. A handful of patients, no doctors. Those with money, with advanced degrees and foresight to flee the country have done so.
Parents decide which of their children they can afford to feed on each days. No one will take this girl.
Sonia says.
Then I will keep working.
Does she speak?
Sonia looks to the girl.
What's her name?
Hava.
Ahmed answers. Six months earlier, Sonia's sister, Natasha, was repatriated from Italy. When Sonia heard the knock and opened the door, she couldn't believe how healthy her sister looked. He hugged her sister, joked about the padding on her hips. Whatever horrors Natasha had experienced in the West, she'd put fat around her waist. "I am home," Natasha said, holding a hug longer than Sonia thought necessary. They ate dinner before the sun went down. Potatoes boiled over the furnace. The army had cut the electricity lines 4 years earlier. They have never been repaired. Sonia showed her sister to the square room by candlelight, gestured to the bed.
This is a place to sleep, Natasha.
They spent the week in a state of heightened civility. No prying questions. All talk was small. What Sonia noticed, she did not comment on. A bottle of ribavirin antiviral pills on the bathroom sink. Cigarette burns on Natasha's shoulder. Sonia's worked on surgeries, and Natasha worked on sleeping. Sonia brought food from the hospital and Natasha ate it. Sonia started the fire in the morning and Natasha slept. There were mornings and there were nights. This is life, Sonia thought. Ahmed is true to his words. 5 minutes after Sonia accepts the girl, he is washed and suited in scrubs. Sonia takes him on a tour of the hospital. All but 2 wings are closed for lack of staff. She shows him the cardiology, internal medicine, and endocrinology wards. A layer of dust covers the floor, their footprints leaving a trail. Sonia thinks of the moon landing, how she saw the footage for the first time when she arrived in London.
Where's everything?
Ahmed asks. Beds, sheets, hypodermics, disposable gowns, surgical tape, film dressing, thermometers, IV bags, forceps, any item of practical medical use is gone. Empty cabinets, open drawers, locked rooms, closed blinds, tape over window panes. The stale air remained.
The trauma and maternity wards, and we're struggling to keep them both open.
Ahmed runs his fingers through his beard.
Trauma. That's obvious. You have to keep trauma open. But maternity?
Sonia's laugh rings down the empty hall.
I know. It's funny, isn't it? Everyone is either giving birth or dying.
No.
Ahmed shakes his head. And Sonia wonders if he's offended by her.
They are coming into the world, and they are living the world. And it's happening here.
Sonia nods, wonders if Ahmed is religious after all. Now I want you to look on your notes. Did you write any word you weren't able to comprehend earlier? If you did, write those words to the first blank on your electronic reading log. If there isn't, write none. And if you have time, you can pause this video right away. After writing, I need you to use your phone, computer, or dictionary to look on the meaning of those written words. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for that. Afterwards, write the meaning on the second blank of your e-reading log. You can also pause this video as you write those. After knowing these words, you may come back to that particular part of this video and reread it. Do it now. If you have not written any, let's proceed to discussion.
Okay!
First, let's try to answer our lead-off questions. Our first question was, what descriptions were given about the setting of the story? The following textual evidence will lead us to the answer. The nurse hesitates. He's right out here. A minute later in the hallway, the man introduces himself. My name is Ahmed. He speaks Russian without an accent, but by now, Sonja feels more comfortable conversing in Chenchnya. A short beard descends from Ahmed's face. For a moment, she thinks he's a religious man, then remembers that most men have grown their beards out. Few have shaving creams, fewer have mirrors. The war has made the country cheats and cheats devout. He gestures to a small girl no older than 8, standing beside him.
On the highlighted text, we could see the words nurse and war, which would imply that the setting was on a hospital during a war. More specifically, we would learn later on that this is a war between Russia and Chenchnya, as the text would reveal that the character was trying to speak Russian without the accent to communicate to the doctor. The speaker, a Chechen native, was well aware that Sonia was a Russian doctor. While the two parties were still in hostile environment after the war, we would understand in the text that the hospital is a zone for peace.
So, we're going to conclude that the setting of the story is on a hospital during a war. We tried to answer this item using a textual evidence. Try it too. Look for a description of the setting implied by the text. Write your answer on the third slot of the e-reading log. Next question. What seems to be the context surrounding the story? From the facts we already know, the setting is at war with the two characters from both parties, man versus man. This is a conflict in the story. Another conflict here is man versus self. In the story, Sonia struggled to finally accept Hava and help her due to the circumstances of the war, the resources, the loyalty of Ahmed, and the implications of an enemy inside her hospital. But in the end, she overruled her issues and accepted the child. There are other conflicts seen in the story. Have you taken notice? Write it and your explanation on the fourth slot of your e-reading log. Next question. What was the deal made by Sonia and Ahmed? The deal was for Sonia to provide shelter and food for Hava. In return, Ahmed will practice medicine in her hospital for his last year. For the fourth question, what change in attitude was evident in the main character of the story at the beginning and at the end? Sonia, still grieving her sister's death in the beginning, has doubts on providing help to an enemy of her country, which is totally understandable. The pain of losing your only family must be unbearable. But in the end, she was able to set aside the differences they have to provide care to the child, which, like her sister before, needed safety and shelter. In this story, we were able to see the involvement of three Chechen ideals as a driving force of their country's disposition: family, faith, and freedom. The Chechen people prioritizes protecting their family above all else, even at the expense of others. This may be seen on the textual evidence of rich families leaving their country with their children. The resistance shown by Chenchnya in the two Chechen wars also showed the country's disposition on freedom, even when resulting to almost a third of their total population dead. More so, a soft spot that Sonia and Ahmed share was faith, where they chose to see the meaning of life and death. Wow, this story just gave us the opportunity to travel through time and space in Russia. At this juncture, it's time for your quick assessment. Write your answer on the fifth slot of your e-reading log. What do the hospital symbolize in the story? A. Food and shelter for the poor. B. The beginning and ending of life on earth. C. The gateway to eternal life. And D. A poor government investment. Again, what do the hospital symbolize in the story? A. Food and shelter for the poor. B. The beginning and ending of life on earth. C. The gateway to eternal life. And D. A poor government investment. That ends our lesson for today. If you have questions, please feel free to ask me during our synchronous meeting. Don't forget to submit your e-learning logs until Thursday this week. I am happy to have served you today. Until our next reading adventure, I am Michael Kevin Imonforte for I Love Reading. The Republic forms part of Russia's North Caucasian Federal District. Good day, learners! I am Teacher Kevin and I am here to help you read the stories assigned to you today for the subject 21st Century from the Philippines and the World. I love reading.